Hello, Patriots. Uh, Here's a new development that I wanted to bring to your attention. As you can see, the title, the organization is FDD, Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and it's dated for today, and it reads Biden's plan to expose nuclear secrets to Moscow and Beijing. Now, this is, there's an excerpt, but instead of just reading the excerpt, I want to give it full due diligence and go to the article, which is written by the contributors that are part of the FDD, and of course links will be in the description as always. Let's go ahead. In a stunning decision to potentially expose vital national security secrets to America's top adversaries, the Biden administration last month quietly invited Russia and China to send observers to upcoming nuclear weapons-related tests at the U.S. Nevada test site. While Beijing and Moscow haven't responded yet, Congress should prohibit such visits and invest in the U.S. nuclear deterrent instead. I don't need to tell you as I read these words what is happening in Congress. I'm sure you're all aware. The catalyst for this misguided effort was an explosive and misleading news report last month that created a false equivalency between China's and Russia's actions at its own test sites and U.S. activities in Nevada. Increased activities at test sites in China and Russia, we are supposed to believe, the merely responses to commercial satellite pictures showing increased activities at our own test site is the U.S. The proposed response? Give our adversaries the keys to the nuclear kingdom to avoid misunderstandings. Even in the absence of any reciprocal measures by Beijing or China. Beijing or Moscow. That's not the point to begin with, but that's the point of the article that it's making so far. This isn't the first time a naive and dangerous proposal like this, which I disagree with, by the way, neither naive or, well, it's very dangerous, but I have my own thoughts on that. This isn't the first time a naive and dangerous proposal like this has come forward. More than a decade ago, as part of the so-called Russia reset, the Obama administration proposed sharing classified U.S. missile defense data with Moscow to assure Russian President Vladimir Putin that America's missile defenses weren't directed at Russia. In 2011, Senator Mark Kirk of Illinois held up the nomination of Obama's new ambassador to Russia until the White House promised no sensitive data would be provided. And Congress wrote that commitment into law by prohibiting such transfers in the Defense Authorization Bill. The ban remains in place to this day. The U-1A complex at the Nevada test site conducts, quote, subcritical and physics experiments to obtain technical information about the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile, unquote. A subcritical experiment uses nuclear material and high explosives, but does not set off a nuclear chain reaction. While Russia and China hide their nuclear budgets, sites, and activities from the world, the United States already provides far more transparency, albeit still with a tight grip on access to sensitive areas and information. Information about the Nevada test site, including a virtual tour of non-sensitive areas, is available online. Washington publishes information about this stockpile, stewardship program, and subcritical experiments, publicly forecasting 2 experiments for fiscal year 2024. Earlier this year, the Executive Secretary of Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization visited U-1A complex and its underground facilities, though not the sensitive areas where the Biden administration would allow Chinese and Russian officials. I repeat, where the Biden administration would allow Chinese and Russian officials. Giving Beijing and Moscow the opportunity to observe how the U.S. maintains its stockpile could help them learn how to defeat the stockpile and improve their own. Concern on Capitol Hill is already emerging. Representative Doug Lamborn, Republican from Colorado, has pledged legislation to stop it. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, the House Armed Services Committee declared, quote, "Our adversaries should not be given access to U.S. nuclear weapons experiments and tests," unquote. The fact that this needs to be done, the fact that this needs to be said, the fact that this has to end up in a story like this, and the fact that I have to, as an American, read it absolutely disgusts me. But let's keep going. They are right. With Russia openly threatening nuclear weapons use if its provoked invasion of Ukraine is not successful, and China planning to nearly quadruple its nuclear forces by 2035, such risks represent a national security non-starter. There are significant concerns that China and Russia are conducting supercritical tests that produce a chain reaction. When nuclear weapons states declared a nuclear test moratorium in 1996, the acceptable standard was not defined. The U.S. adopted a zero-yield standard, a pledge to not conduct supercritical tests, to which the United Kingdom and France also adhere. The State Department assessed last year that China's lack of transparency on its nuclear experiments raised concerns about Beijing's activities at its nuclear test site and its commitment to the, quote, zero-yield, unquote, standard. Meanwhile, quote, Russia has conducted nuclear weapons experiments that have created nuclear yield, unquote. Excuse me. Russia is a serial violator of arms control agreements with the U.S. In February, Russia suspended participation in the New START treaty, which limited both countries' strategic nuclear weapon systems. Though the treaty is effectively dead because of the Kremlin's violations, the Biden administration insists on waiting for a Russian return that may never come. The unpopular fact is that America is safer without the treaty, as Moscow is developing theater nuclear weapons designed for use on battlefield that are not covered by the accord. Russia has also shown itself to be an untrustworthy international partner. Moscow violated the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, in which Russia and the U.S. pledged to eliminate all missiles that could travel between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. The Trump administration correctly withdrew from the treaty in 2019, as NATO condemned Russia's violations as, quote, a significant risk to alliance security, unquote. China has refused to engage in meaningful discussions on its nuclear program, given Beijing's lack of transparency, aggressive posture in the region, and enabling the North Korean and Iranian nuclear programs. Congress would be justified in pressing for a major modernization and expansion of the U.S. nuclear force. China and Russia aren't expanding their nuclear forces because of a lack of American transparency. They are doing so to challenge U.S. global leadership. Congress should do everything possible to ensure that they fail in that effort, starting with a prohibition on Russian and Chinese access to secret nuclear sites. The link will be in the description. That is all for now, for God and country.